Gopi Janavalabha Girivardhari Jasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamunatira Vanachali Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jai Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Vaidivajagacharya Astotaras Sri Sri Maharaj Divine Grace Abhay Charanand in the Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Scambi with the founder charge of Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Sri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai Thai Gauravimanandi, all glories to the sum of the devotees. All glories to the sum of the devotees. All glories to the sum of the devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthavadare Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Vachani Vishesha Shunya Vari Paschatari Satarika Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, Chapter 21, entitled Conversation Between Manu and Kardama. Text number 51, I guess. It's supposed to be 51. Yesterday he did 48, 49, and 50. So it's text number 51. Okay. All right. 51. Yo Arkendu Agnindra Vayunam Yama Dharma Prachetasam Rupani Stana Adatse Tasmai Shuklaya Te Namaha Yorken Vagnidra Vayunam Yorken Vagnindra Vayunam Yama Dharma Prachetasam Yama Dharma Prachetasam Rupani Stana Adaste Rupani Stana Adaste Tasmai Suklaya Te Namaha Tasmai Suklaya Te Namaha Yorken Vagnindra Vayunam Yama Dharma Prachetasam Rupani Stanya Datse Tasmai Shuklaya Te Namaha. Yorkende Agnindra Vayunam Yama Dharma Prachetasam Rupani Stanadatse Tasmai Shuklayate Namaha. Yorkendvagnindra Vayunam Yama Dharma Prachetasam Rupani Stanadatse Tasmai Shuklayate Namaha. Ladies? Yogendra Nindra Vayunam Yama Dharma Prachetasam Rupani Stana Adatse Tasmai Shuklayate Namaha. Word for word. Ya Yuhu. Uhu. Okay, that was a joke. Arka of the sun. Indu of the moon. Agni of Agni, the fire god. Indra of Indra, the king, the lord of heaven. Vayunam of Vayu, the wind god. Yama of Yama, the god of punishment. Dharma of Dharma, the god of piety. Prachetasam and of Varuna, the god of the waters. Rupani, the forms. Stane, when necessary. Adatse, you assume. Tasmai, unto him. Shuklaya, unto Lord Vishnu. Te, unto you. Namaha. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace. Yeah. Oh. Yes. My basis. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. You assume, when necessary, the part of the sun god, the moon god, Agni, the god of fire, Indra, the lord of paradise, Vayu, the wind god, Yama, the god of punishment, Dharma, the god of piety, and Varuna, the god of presiding over the waters. All obeisances to you, who are none other than Lord Vishnu. Please repeat. You assume, when necessary, the part of the sun god, the moon god, Agni, the god of fire, Indra, the lord of paradise, Vayu, the wind god, Yama, the god of punishment, Dharma, the god of piety, and Varuna, the god presiding over the waters. All obeisances to you, who are none other than Lord Vishnu. Purport. Since the sage Kardama was a Brahmana and Swayambhuva was a Kshatriya, the sage was not supposed to offer obeisances to the king because socially his position was greater than the king's. But he offered his obeisances to Swayambhuva Manu because as Manu, king and emperor, he was the representative of the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord is always worshipable, regardless of whether one is a Brahmana, a Kshatriya, or a Shudra. As the representative of the Supreme Lord, the king deserved respectful obeisances from everyone. Om Jnanati Mirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshunamitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah. Ugam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langayate Girmarkivdamande Sigram Dina Tarna Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanya Ishwaram. So we've been reading these last few verses, which is very nicely describing how everyone has a duty, and certainly everyone in society has a duty, in every society for that matter. The bees, the drone bees, have a certain duty in their society of bees. The ants have a certain responsibility as being part of the ant hill. So everyone has a particular duty. And that system, Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, Chaturmarnya Mayashrishtam Gunakarmi Bhagasha, he created that system. Sometimes it's very obvious, right? In human society, it's more obvious. Even in human society, though, it can be covered. But it applies to human society. The kings have the brahmanas have a certain duty. The Kshatriyas have a certain duty. The Vaishyas have a certain duty. The Shudras have a certain duty. So everyone has a particular work. And sometimes it's very obvious. Just like here, we're reading so nicely how, although the Swayambhuva was a Kshatriya, typically the sages don't have to offer obeisances to Kshatriyas. The Brahmanas don't have to offer obeisances to the ruling class. Typically you don't, it's not there, but it's the other way around, that the Brahmanas, being the heads of society, are respected by the Kshatriyas, by the Vaishyas, and certainly the Shudras. But in this case, we're seeing how that Kshatriya has taken on the position of king. And we can understand from Vedic knowledge that the king is the representative of the Supreme Lord. And when that king is proper, then a society being governed by him and guided by the Brahmana class, it functions very nicely. In the previous purport, Prabhupada wrote very nicely that it is very difficult to find such a head of state who is expert in killing or taking or managing the undesirables. Because there's certainly a lot of undesirable conditions that happen in society. And the king's responsibility is that he sees to it that society is functioning properly. Just like Maharaj Pricket, when he went on tour and he saw that the Shudra was punishing or about to kill a cow, he immediately sprung into action. So this is their responsibility, to make sure that there's no difficulties. Unfortunately, in the modern society, or in the present state of the world, they simply sit, as Prabhupada pointed out yesterday very nicely, they sit in their nice palaces and they try without reason to kill innocent persons. Unbelievable how predicting Srila Prabhupada was in writing this. This is third canto, and we're seeing how, which was written in the early years of Krishna consciousness movement, Prabhupada was so insightful, and Bhagavatam tells us that how in the Kali Yuga, as the age progresses, Sanskrita kriya hina rajasa tamasavarita, these rajas, they're not rishis. Instead of being raja rishis, they're simply rajagun and tamagun. And their only business is to see how they can kill innocent persons by taxation, physically, mistreatment, etc. So in this case, we're seeing how Manu, being not only a Manu, but king and emperor, and the representative of the Supreme Lord, was being honored justly by Kardama, who, being a Brahmana, did not really have to. But again, the point is that everyone has a duty, and when that duty is fulfilled properly, then all the goals of human life are achieved. Yakshastrim vidim usrija vartate kamakarata. Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita that when one disregards the instructions of the Vedic literatures and acts according to his own whims, just whimsically, and we see it every day, how these so-called leaders are just acting whimsically. Well, I think we'll bomb this place. I think we'll just try to take whatever we can out of this place for our own whims. Na sukam na siddhim avapnoti na sukam na param gatim. Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita. Neither their happiness, nasa siddhim, nasukam param gati. There's no perfection, there's no benefit to what they're doing. There's no happiness in what they're doing, even though they may exploit to the highest degree. Neither do they achieve the supreme destination. And that supreme destination, we understand, is to be freed or liberated from this cycle of material life. But again, there's no regard. So duty is a very important principle in human society, especially in civilized human society. Therefore, everyone has certain responsibilities, and those responsibilities, they should not be forsaken for some other interest. Krishna again states in Bhagavad Gita, right? Yagya jnana tapakriya natyajam karma evacha, that certain acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance have to be performed. Everyone has to perform those. We're seeing it in everyday experience, that we're sacrificing our time, or we're sacrificing our youth, or we're sacrificing our intelligence. Maybe we're sacrificing our wealth. So everyone is making some sacrifice. And everyone is performing some sort of penance. It's like to rise up early, it's an austerity. To engage in regulated devotional life, it's an austerity. Even in the material world, the materialists, they're rising early. You can hear it. When we get up at whatever time we get up in the early morning, you can for sure hear the freeway running. It runs there's cars running back and forth. It's practically 24 hours a day. Literally 24 hours a day. So they're performing all sorts of sacrifices and all sorts of penance to try and achieve their position. Maybe they give a teeny little bit of charity so that they can get some blessing or they can get some promotion. Those acts have to be performed, but if they're not performed in the proper state, then there's no purification there. Those acts have to be performed because they purify even the great souls. But if it's not done in the proper state of consciousness, state of mind, then the benefits are not there. But when that duty is performed correctly, as Krishna explains that in Bhagavad Gita, right? Vedeshu yageshu tapeshu janeshu yat tyajam punyapalam. That when those activities, when that work is done correctly and performed in the proper state of mind, then one is not bereft of the results of that work. We're trying to do so many things, whether it be studying, right? People are trying to become educated. They're trying to learn something about how to live a peaceful life. And they're similarly performing all sorts of austerities, all sorts of sacrifices. They're giving charity. But again, when these things are not done in the proper with the proper understanding, according to the proper education or guidance, then that supreme destination is not achieved. Krishna says, Yogi Bharam Sthanam, that when one performs these things in the proper mentality, with the proper guidance, then whatever benefits are there from studying, we're also studying the Vedic literatures, and they're giving us information as to the identity of the conditioned souls. We're performing austerities and performing sacrifices. We're giving the opportunity to everyone to learn this science of Krishna consciousness. That's also giving charity. So by doing that in the proper mentality, the results are there. So it's interesting to note here, Prabhupada points out that when necessary, the personality of Godhead assumes all of these different personalities or deities. When there's a need for a proper governance, when there's a need for distribution of wealth in the proper way, when there's a need to instruct these citizens with the proper guidance, the Lord empowers. He himself may come, but he empowers different personalities to have those things accomplished. Therefore, all obeisances onto the Supreme Lord Vishnu. Kardama is stating here. It's very instructive to us. It's very instructive to society that we all have a certain responsibility, and when we do that work in the proper state of mind, the proper intent, not that we're looking for some reward or we're looking for some result. Srila Prabhupada comments in the 18th chapter, there's a number of verses there that in the purports Prabhupada repeatedly talks about how one should perform one's duty without any other purpose than to satisfy the personality of Godhead. It should be done, as the Lord says, it should be done because it ought to be done. It ought to be done. And when we act with no attachment to the fruits, that is described as work in the mode of goodness. And when that work is done in the mode of goodness, one will have no doubt about work. It's just so practical that when your mind is clear of attachments to the results of it, then you have no doubt about performing that work, whether it be going out on preaching activities or whether it's doing some service around the temple or whether it's preaching in some program. You have no doubt. But when the mentality is such that, oh, I'm looking for some benefit, or I'm looking for some personal result out of this, then it becomes mode of ignorance and passion, and it becomes, the whole atmosphere becomes disturbed. And instead of becoming an enlivening experience, it becomes a burden. Srila Prabhupada comments how when if the deities are not serviced properly, then they can become a burden. And if managing one's household is not done in the proper state, then it becomes a burden. We see it practically, what happens in society, divorce, or so many other unmentionable things happen. When that sense of doing it because it ought to be done is missing. And Prabhupada again comments that when one performs work in that mentality, it's the mode of goodness. That mode of goodness, the concomitant result of that work is that one has no doubt about work. When that is missing, then we have a confusion about what I should be doing. Right? Again, Krishna says, "Yakshastram vidim usrijal, vartate kamakarata." There's no one that one is acting outside. What is that shloka? That that one doesn't know, the demoniac or the materialistic kind of person knows not what to be done, what should be done. What is that verse? I forget. Pravritim cha navritim cha janana vidarasara. That the materialistic minded person, therefore he doesn't understand what is to be done and what is not to be done. And there's all doubts about what I should be doing with my life and what is the purpose of my work. But when one is acting with the mentality that this is for the Lord's enjoyment and it should be done because it ought to be done, Prabhupada states in the purport very nicely, one does it because it ought to be done for the satisfaction of, in other words, we are meant to be engaged in the service of the Lord. Just like the hand is it's meant, it ought to be servicing the mouth so that it can be used in the stomach and replenish the whole body. So it ought to be done. We're meant to be engaged in Krishna service, and when we're not engaged in that service, it becomes very doubtful. Everything we do in life, in society, in our own mind, it becomes very doubtful. Well, what am I doing? Or why am I here? Or what is this all about? But when the mind and senses are engaged because they should be engaged in servicing the master of the senses, then everything is very peaceful, and then one has no confusion about what the purpose of human life is. The purpose of human life is to be engaged in the process of Krishna consciousness, the process of bhakti yoga, and especially in this day and age, is best performed through the process of Sankirtan Yajna. Okay. Any questions or comments? All right. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.